morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of OBSTAGOON. So today, we've got a special kind of video. The top 10 Pokemon cards in the game right now. Let's take a look, shall we? So starting off with an honourable mention, we've got Blacephalon. Now, Blacephalon is one of those cards. It is important to note at this stage that we've just had a new set, Darkness Ablaze, which has become tournament legal, and we've just had a rotation, so whereas every set from Ultra Prism was legal, now every set from Team Up is legal. And that means that the game is changing quite a bit, so over the next few weeks, this list might end up changing quite a bit, though I feel fairly confident about it, or I wouldn't be showing you. Now, Blacephalon is a single prize Pokemon, and the hook of him, essentially, is that it can hang with multiple prize Pokemon. Yes, it's got an attack that does 10 damage and flips a prize card face up, and if it's a fire energy, you do 60. Yay! Great in an emergency, but not much more than that. But for free fire energy, you do 50 damage times the number of fire energy you discard from your hand. So if you're against a big bad Eternatus VMAX, just discard 7 fire energy from your hand, and you'll get a one-hit KO for free prizes. That's halfway to winning the game. If they KO you back, they'll take 1 prize. That is 1/6 of the way towards winning the game. You can see how that might be an advantage. We've got Welder to attach 2 fire energy and then draw 3 cards. So you attach 2 with Welder and 1 is your attachment for the turn, and it's going in a single turn. And we got cards like Fire Crystal to get energy back from the discard, and Giant Half to search them out from the deck. And yeah, I know that the rotation made us lose Fiery Flint, which was really good at pulling fire cards out of the deck. But you know what? Still a very good deck. Very close to making the list. In at number 7, I'm cheating a little bit. For the first, but not the last time this video. I'll only cheat once more, I promise. We've got Decidueye and OBSTAGOON. And the reason we put Decidueye and OBSTAGOON together is very simple. They basically serve the same purpose and do the same thing. They are your tee-hee-hee, I'm locking you out the game, there's nothing you can do, I automatically win kind of Pokemon. Decidueye's got the ability Deep Forest Camo that prevents all damage done to it by attacks from Pokemon Vs and GXs. And Galarian OBSTAGOON's got the attack Obstruct that does 90 damage, and during your opponent's next turn you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. So against something like a Pikachu and Zekrom that is both basic and a GX Pokemon, neither of these Pokemon are going to be touched, they can both grant immunity. Though it is worth remembering Decidueye is an automatic immunity, OBSTAGOON does have to attack to activate it. But against, say, an Eternatus VMAX, that's an evolution, so Galarian OBSTAGOON won't block, but it's a GX, so Decidueye will. Against something like Blacephalon, it's not a GX or a V, so Decidueye won't block, but it's a basic, so OBSTAGOON will. And we've seen these played, at the Players' Cup. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. This past weekend, or a couple weekends ago as you watch this, this was a deck in and of itself, and people have started picking up and playing it as such ever since. Decidueye's attack that does 90 to the active and 20 to each of 2 bench isn't that great. And Galarian OBSTAGOON's 90 damage isn't that great. But these Pokemon, it is not about how much damage you're doing. It is about if you don't have a counter, you're literally locked out the game. In at number 9, we've got Lucario and Melmetal. And this is a weird one for me. Because you see, a couple of weeks ago, if I'd have asked people to write down their top 10 cards in the format, I feel fairly confident very, very few people would have written Lucario and Melmetal onto that list. But we had the Players' Cup this past weekend. Now, essentially what that was, they had a month where you went and played the Pokemon trading card game online, the official online client. You took part in a bunch of mini online events, and you built up points. And the most points would qualify for the finals, or, the tournament proper. So it was the top 256 in Europe, North America, and Latin America, and the top 128 in Oceania. And then there would be a double elimination tournament in each of those regions that would get down to the top 4 in Europe, top 4 in Latin America, top 4 in North America, top 3 in Oceania. And then Tord Reklev, who won the International. He's a very good player. Or the Invitational, which he got invited to because he keeps winning international championships. He's won a bunch. And then those top 16 entered a double elimination tournament which crowned the winner. And in that final top 16... the top 2 decks, both the finalists, were Lucario and Melmetal decks. So is it just a flash in the pan, or has it actually come to fruition and is staying around? The answer is, we don't really know, but it's going to be fun finding out. And really, the reason we play this is 1 Metal Energy. For the rest of the game, this is a GX attack. You only can use 1 GX attack for the entire game. But this one says that for the rest of the game, all of your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks, which is a bit nuts. And if you attach a second energy, you also discard all the energy from your opponent's active. So if your opponent's gone to a bunch of effort getting 2, 3, 4 energy on their active, you can set them back a couple of turns and buy yourself some time while blocking damage done. And you can combine this with a card like Metal Goggles. You attach that to a metal Pokemon, and it takes 30 less damage from attacks, and it blocks damage counters being dropped by attacks or abilities. So take a Pokemon like Zamazenta, came very close to making this list, but just missed out. I know it's good, and I know it's played in Lucario and Melmetal decks, but I don't think it's the best card in it, and it's a very small list, okay? But it could easily have gone on this list. If you want to put it on the list, I wouldn't be upset. And obviously, whack a comment down if you disagree with the list, but as always, be nice. So Zamazenta is immune to Pokemon VMAXs. Cool. So something like Eternatus VMAX can't touch it. So what an Eternatus player is going to do is just use Eternatus V. But Eternatus V does like 120 damage, minus 30 for your GX attack from Lucario and Melmetal, minus 30 from a Metal Goggles, means Eternatus is doing 60 damage, which really isn't very much. That's why Lucario and Melmetal ends up being so gosh darned good. In at number 8, we've got Jirachi, and Jirachi is another question mark. Because you see, Jirachi, now if we were doing this pre-rotation, if we were doing this before the rotation hit, Jirachi would be a top 3 Pokemon, no question. But things have changed. You see, Jirachi's ability is terrible. No, wait, the ability's great. Jirachi's attack is terrible, but the ability is phenomenal. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a trainer card and put it into your hand, but then Jirachi goes to sleep. But we would use a card of Skateboard, which reduced your retreat cost by 1, making it free, because Jirachi's only got a retreat of 1, and allows you to retreat if you're asleep or paralysed. Oh, well that's rather lovely. So now, with Jirachi, you use the ability in the active, find a trainer card, free retreat of a Skateboard, and off you go. It's phenomenal. But a Skateboard rotated. So now you can't do that anymore. So what do we do? And the answer is, it's still a great card. We've seen for a while now the turn 1 rules are such that you're not allowed to attack and you're not allowed to use a supporter. But you can use cards like Switch and Scoop Up Net to switch and pick up Jirachi, to use multiple Jirachi in one turn. So you go first turn 1, you can use 2, 3, 4 Jirachi, and just get a bunch of item cards that you are allowed to play on turn 1 and still have an explosive turn. And Jirachi still works in that regard. You can still use cards like Switch and Scoop Up Net to get multiple Jirachi firing in one turn. The difference is you're no longer allowed to use a Skateboard. So I still think it deserves to be on the list, but it's going to remain to be seen really how good it is in this new format. Still think it deserves to be on the list. Speaking of Pokemon that used to be flat out amazing and are still probably good but we're not 100% sure like we used to be, Pikachu and Zekrom. You see, this is, as an attacker, just over the top great. Free energy, 150 damage, and you attach free energy from your deck, so you don't have to get the energy in hand, you don't have to get it in your discard pile, you can just play it from your deck. And free energy 200, nobody cares. Remember these tag team GX attacks, like we saw with Lucario and Melmetal, they've got their, use. And their use. Yeah, free energy will do 200 damage, but if you put 6 energy on, you do 200 to the active and 170 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is enough to KO something like a Dedenne for 2 prizes. And those 2 attacks together just make this a ridiculous Pokemon that has been one of the very, very best decks since the moment it released. Now, the way you get this going turn 1 is with a combination of 2 cards. Thunder Mountain reduces your attack cost by 1 lightning energy, and Tapu Koko lets you attach 2 lightning energy, 1 to each of 2 bench Pokemon. So Thunder Mountain plus Tapu Koko plus your attachment for the turn, oh look, free energy, full blitz, done. But we lost Thunder Mountain to the rotation. Now we can still use Tapu Koko to accelerate 2 energy, 1 to Pikarom, 1 to another, and we can then use Energy Switch to move that second energy to Pikarom, so we can still get the turn 1 full blitz, it's just more awkward. But we've also lost Electro Power to let all your attacks do an extra 30 damage this turn, and there are question marks as to how this stacks up against decks like Eternatus, and what we're basically left with here is a card which has been one of the very, very best decks since it came out 18 months ago, but maybe, just maybe, enough has changed that it's finally not as good as it used to be. Either way, I'm still putting it on this list because until I've got real data otherwise, I'm going to imagine this is amazing. In at number 6, a fairly unassuming Pokemon, it's Galarian ZIGZAGOON. It's a 70 HP evolving basic. These are rarely good. But Galarian ZIGZAGOON is very much the exception. Interestingly enough, this does actually evolve into that Galarian OBSTAGOON we looked at earlier on the list, but this is a better card. It's not for the attack, which isn't great. It's just flat out bad, to be honest. It's for the ability Headbutt Tantrum. When you play it from your hand to your bench, you get to drop 1 damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And one of my old adages of the Pokemon trading card game is this: extra damage is always good. Doing more damage is always a good thing. And I mentioned that Scoop Up Net card a little while ago. Well, that lets you pick up a non-GX, non-V Pokemon and put it into your hand, like Galarian ZIGZAGOON. So if you play multiple Galarian ZIGZAGOON and multiple Scoop Up Net, you can be dropping a lot of extra damage. Or you can just play one Galarian ZIGZAGOON, because there are some key KOs where your main attacker is just 10 damage away from getting a KO, and that's where Galarian ZIGZAGOON comes in. It's already being teched into a huge amount of decks, and you can expect this to carry on for the entire time that it's legal. Speaking of less impressive Pokemon on the face of it that are seen playing a huge amount of decks, Oranguru. And again, it's not the attack is garbage. But the ability Primate Wisdom lets you swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. Now, at the face of it, this is just draw a card. And sure, you have to put a card from your hand on top of your deck, but let's say you're desperately searching for a Twin Energy, you don't have it in hand. This gives you one more chance to draw that Twin Energy, and maybe you will, maybe you won't, but this gives you one more chance to do so. But it's so much more than that. Let's say you've got a Twin Energy in hand, but you're not allowed to attach it. But you want to play a Professor's Research, discard your hand, draw 7 cards, but you can't, because you'll be discarding Twin Energy and then you can't get it back. Oh, hang on a second. Use Oranguru to put it on top of your deck. Play Professor's Research, and then you draw back into it, but you haven't had to discard it. And then there's really weird uses, like, now this has rotated now, but Jirachi Prism Star. When you draw it as a face-down prize card, you put it on your bench and you literally take an extra prize. How do you guarantee drawing it as an extra face-down prize card? Well, you use Mr. Mime to put the top card of your deck as a face-down prize card. Okay. How do you guarantee it's the top card of your deck? Oranguru. And that combination will literally draw you extra prizes. Oranguru can literally just be an extra little draw power, but it can be so much more. In at number 4, however, we have got one of those big smashy Pokemon that does look good on the face of it. Eternatus V Max. Now, this has got the ability Eternal Zone, which lets you have a bench of 8 Pokemon rather than the usual 5, as long as they are all Darkness Pokemon. Nice. That just gives you extra options. The more bench space you've got, the more Pokemon you can play. The more Pokemon you can play, the more options you've got. This is great. I should mention it's got 340 HP, which is the joint highest HP we've ever seen on any Pokemon ever, which is pretty good. I'm not counting those silly jumbo cards that aren't legal. I'm talking real cards. And for just 2 energy, you do 30 damage for each of your Darkness Pokemon in play. So what you should have here is a 340 HP Pokemon doing 270 damage for just 2 energy, and it opens up your bench and gives you more options. That's a little bit ridiculous. It's crazy. Great card. Now, in terms of getting that second energy on, I mean, it's only 2 energy, you can just do it normally, but we've got Eternatus V, the pre-evolution of it, which will accelerate a bit of energy. We got Turbo Patch that lets you flip a coin, and if heads, you attach a basic energy from your discard to one of your basic Pokemon. Obviously, you have to do this to Eternatus, not the evolved V Max, but you knew that. And what we're basically left with here is just a ridiculous, over-the-top, phenomenal Pokemon, which should be one of the best decks for at least the near future. In at number 3, we've got a card which is so gosh darn good, people are literally calling for it to be banned. It's Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX. Now, it does actually have an attack for free energy that does 150 damage, and then you search your deck for free energy and attach him to your Pokemon in any way that you like. That's kind of cool. Very much like Pikachu and Zekrom, except for any kind of energy, but it's more awkward to pay. But we got the attack, the GX attack, your once per game GX attack, Altered Creation. For 1 metal and 1 water energy, for the rest of the game, all of your Pokemon do an extra 30 damage. That's pretty good. And every time you take a KO, you take an extra prize. That's ridiculous. That's like properly over the top, ridiculously broken. Because let's take something like Excadrill. I love Excadrill. Might be my favourite card in the game. 1 energy, 120 damage, but you have to discard the top 4 cards of your deck. Or 1 energy, 180 if you got 3 or fewer cards in your deck. Nice. And this is one of those Pokemon, the HP isn't as high as these 2 and 3 prize Pokemon, and it doesn't do quite as much damage, but that's okay, it only gives up 1 prize. You sacrifice HP and power for giving up fewer prizes. Until ADP comes along, and makes you a 2 prize Pokemon. This very literally breaks the game by making it such that all of these Pokemon that should have advantages by giving up fewer prizes now don't. And some people see that as a problem. Either way, I see that as a top 3 card in the game right now. In at number 2, the best attacker in the game, it is Zacian V. But it's not actually just an attacker. It's got 220 HP, which is high. It's got a good attack. But it's also got the ability Intrepid Sword. And basically it says once during your turn, draw 3 cards. But if any of them are metal, you can attach them to Zacian. And we've seen this see play a lot in decks like Blacephalon, who just want a turn 1 option. This ability ends your turn. But remember, you can't play a supporter turn 1, you can't attack turn 1, you gotta do something. Why not Zacian? End your turn by drawing 3 cards. Do it. It's a bit good. But it's also got an attack that for free energy does 230 damage. And you can't attack next turn, but we've got so many switching cards and all at the moment, that is rarely an issue. And it's free energy, but you've got the ability. And you've got Metal Saucer, which attaches an energy and metal energy from your discard to your bench metal Pokemon. Or you got that Turbo Patch card I mentioned earlier that doesn't work for GXs, but absolutely does work for Pokemon V. And what you've got here is a phenomenal attacker that does a lot of damage, that's also got a ridiculous setup attack, which is a combo we almost never see. It is arguably the best deck in the game right now with Lucario and Melmetal, just making it a big tanky deck. And it is arguably the best deck in the format right now with Arceus and Dialga and Palkia taking extra prizes. Because then you're doing 260 and taking extra prizes when you attack, which is dumb. Yeah, there's a very good chance this is the main attacker in the 2 best decks in the game right now. That's a little bit over the top ridiculous. So how is this not the best Pokemon in the game? Because Crobat and Dedenne. And it really is as simple as that. Crobat and Dedenne are the best Pokemon in the game, and though I think you can argue with a lot of this list, do so nicely, there's comment sections, you know, go nuts, be nice. But really, these are number 1, and I don't think you can really pick between them at the moment. They are so similar and they provide pretty much the exact same role, and they are both so amazing. Dedenne, when you play it from your hand to your bench, discard your hand, draw 6. Crobat, when you play it from your hand to your bench, draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. They are both phenomenal cards. They are both basic 2-prize Pokemon that you play to your bench to help you set up, and they are both at the heart of basically every deck. In a year's time, Dedenne is going to rotate out and we're all going to be forced to play Crobat, but in the short term, you're choosing between them. And the only decks that don't play these are basically 2-prize decks, or single-prize decks that don't want to play a 2-prize Pokemon. But even then, you do get people playing them as a one-of, because sometimes, you know, you can search these out with cards like Quick Ball, because they're basic Pokemon, they're so easy to find. And sometimes it's a case of, look, I really don't want a 2-prize liability on my bench. But if I don't play a Dedenne, I am going to draw nothing and lose, so I have to put that 2-prize liability on my bench. These are the best cards in the game. The attacks are fine. Crobat for 2 energy does 70 damage plus poison. Dedenne's main attack is kind of rubbish, but the GX attack, once per game, remember, so you couldn't use another if you use this one. But it does 50 damage, and it paralyzes, and you get to put it into your hand, so you can either play it again to draw more cards, or just take a 2-prize liability off your bench. But what we're basically left with here is just two Pokemon that are flat out over the top, ridiculously, phenomenally awesome, and I love them. And they're important. We need Pokemon like this. And even if you want to argue with the rest of the list, and I wouldn't be upset if you did, as long as you were nice, I don't think you can argue with these two. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Top 10 Pokemon in the game right now. And the great thing about a trading card game like the Pokemon trading card game, things are going to change. This is not going to stay the same for the next several months. In 6 months' time, people are going to look at this and go, you put that card on the top 10? Or how could you possibly leave that card off? And the answer is, yeah, that's why I love trading card games. As always, though, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know your opinions. And, of course, look after yourselves till next time. The most important thing, as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching a very special PTCG Radio. Bye.